Those of you who are newer to the parish in the last year or two won't have any memory of this, but there used to be a giant tree right there by the fire hydrant where the entrance to the driveway is. This tree died about, 2 years ago maybe, something like that, and it needed to be taken down. It became a hazard. It could have fallen at any moment. The town graciously took it down for us, leaving behind a stump, a big, dry, dead stump, which sat there for about 8 months, long enough for me to make a plan for what we were going to do with this stump, because I kind of thought it was just going to sit there forever. And there's something a little bit depressing about a dry, dead stump where a beautiful, large, gorgeous, life-giving tree once stood. So Chris Anderson, where are you? Chris Anderson and I made a plan to have Girl Scouts hollow out the stump and turn it into a flower box and plant tulips or something that would come up in the spring, a sign of life coming from the stump. And then the town took the stump out without telling us. It was a good plan. I think about this stump in Advent season. I think about the stump because this is, for those of us in the northern hemisphere, the darkest time of year. It's a time when the dryness of our lives, when the branches of our lives that seem to no longer bear fruit, that give us pain and suffering, cause us frustration and annoyance, they feel ever closer to us, don't they? With those long nights and with the impending holiday celebrations to come. This can be a time of pain, a time of sorrow for many, especially those who are grieving a loss, but really for any of us. They say that Holy Week is the hardest time of year for priests because of all the services we have to get ready for. And Advent is the time when we do the most pastoral care. And I would definitely say that that's true, that this is the time of year when people seem the most tender, the most aware of the dry, desolate places in their lives. But today is the third Sunday in Advent, which you'll note by the lighting of the pink candle on the Advent wreath. We light the pink candle on the third Sunday in Advent because today is known as Gaudete Sunday. Butchered that Latin, but nobody really knows how to pronounce Latin anyway. Gaudete Sunday. The word gaudete means rejoice. And it's Gaudete Sunday because, as you heard Jan Gurley read in the second reading, the first word of that passage from the letter of Paul is rejoice. So here we are in this darkest time of year, in this time when we're called in Advent to think about how far we are from the kingdom of God, about how unsettled life is, about our hope for transformation, and our awareness of how we're not there yet in so many ways, as individuals, as families, and certainly as a global community. But we're called to rejoice today. Why? There are many invitations to rejoicing out there right now. I went to the mall this weekend. I imagine some of you did too. There was lots of saccharine holiday music playing over the speakers. There were sales and discounts and lots of invitation to feel better through purchasing, or eating, or drinking, or some other form of distraction. As if the joy of the season was meant to be found by denying the darkness around us, rather than accepting it and looking for a way to find joy within it. I think all of us as people of faith, as we prepare to celebrate Christmas, need to be a little on guard against finding our Christmas joy through denying the darkness of our lives, rather than through finding the hope of Christ within the darkness of our lives. And that's the message of joy in Advent. That's the message of the third Sunday in Advent when we light the pink candle. It really doesn't have anything to do with Mary. Sorry to disappoint those of you who might be Mary fans. It doesn't actually have to do with that. It has to do with a reminder that even in the dark times, when we turn to Christ, when we hope in our hearts for the coming of God, we are made joyful, even despite present darkness, present suffering. This was certainly true for the prophet Isaiah. We read a lot of Isaiah in this time of year. We read from Isaiah in the Old Testament reading today. Isaiah wrote most of his book in a dark time, in the 8th century, when the people of God were in deep trouble. They were living under military occupation by the Assyrian Empire. King Hezekiah screwed it up. He trusted the wrong international partners. His country was taken over. The people were being oppressed, taxed. The leaders of the people of God were pushing that burden down to those who had the least, the subsistence farmers, by basically taxing them at rates of something like 80 or 90% of their crops to pay tribute to the Assyrians. It was bad. It was a bad time to be part of the people of God. And from this awful time, we get some of the most beautiful oracles of hope from Isaiah. We get that wonderful passage about a shoot shall rise up out of the stump of Jesse. Something will grow from this lifeless stump, despite all evidence to the contrary. We get that beautiful passage about the wolf lying down with the lamb, about the promise of peace in a time of deep conflict, deep pain, deep suffering. That kind of hope is the source of our joy in the midst of our suffering and our sorrow. That kind of hope that God is never absent, even when we feel God's absence. That kind of hope is the source of our joy today when we light the pink candle, when we call to mind the invitation to rejoice even amidst our sorrow. So I invite you this morning to be present to whatever kind of darkness is in your life right now. Whatever the dark place is, whatever the stump in your life is, the part of you that you just are so frustrated about, you just don't think that life can grow there. You're worried that there's not redemption for it. I invite you not to deny that, but to sit with it for a minute, to befriend it, to acknowledge its truth as part of who you are, the creature that God wonderfully made and loves. And then, as you call this dark place in your life to mind, and it could be in your life or it could be in the life of the world that you feel very strongly about, I invite you to imagine that God will kindle in you a new hope, that life will come, even from that dry, desolate place, that the desert will rejoice and blossom, as Isaiah says. That's the picture on your leaflet today, the desert rejoicing and blossoming, the stump growing a shoot, the possibility of hope even in the darkest time. And as we conclude this meditation this morning, I'm going to invite you to sing with me. We sang this simple Taizé chant when we did the Healing Eucharist about a month ago. And the words are, "Within our darkest night, you kindle a fire that never dies away, never dies away, never dies away." And then it repeats. I'm going to sing it once, and as you pick it up, just join in. We'll sing it 3 or 4 times. It goes like this. Within our darkest night, you kindle a fire that never dies away, never dies away. Within our darkest night, you kindle a fire that never dies away, never dies away. Within our darkest night, you kindle a